Messiah had come, even among the Gentiles. Even among us, we heard the good news. And so we rejoiced as a result. As Paul tells us in Romans 15:10, say it again, rejoice, you Gentiles, with his people. And we rejoice at the coming of our King. And our King reigns over both. As Paul says again in Romans 15:12. And again, Isaiah says, the root of Jesse will spring up, one who will rise to rule over the nations, and in him the Gentiles will have hope. And we do have hope in Jesus Christ. You see, this was always the plan. First, the Jews would have him, and then the Gentiles. And so we have hope. This is what has happened here. The first people to witness the birth of Christ were the Jews. Mary, Joseph, and the shepherd. And then the Gentiles came and worshipped him. We even saw this in the book of Acts. As the gospel went first to the Jew and then to the Gentile, we see it repeated over and over again. In Acts 28. Therefore, I want you to know that God's salvation has also been sent to the Gentiles, and they will listen. And we have listened. We have received the epiphany. The light bulb has gone on. Galatians 3:8 says, for Scripture foresaw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and announce the gospel in advance to Abraham. All nations will be blessed through you. And we have that. Or Ephesians 3:6. The mystery is that through the gospel that Gentiles are heirs together with Israel, members together of one body, and shares together in the promises in Christ Jesus. You see, the birth of Christ is the reveal of God to the Gentiles. What God has done for us. What God is doing. It's a demonstration of how grace came to the world through the people of Israel, through the giving of his Son. We must never forget that the first Christians were Jews. Paul was a Jew who proclaimed the gospel to the Gentiles. So we rejoice. For as Paul says in Romans 9:22 through 26, what if God, desiring to show his wrath to make known his own power, he has endured with patience vessels of wrath prepared for destruction in order to make known the riches of his glory, for vessels of his mercy, which he has prepared before glory. Even us with whom he has called, not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentiles. As indeed, as the prophet Hosea said, those who are not my people I will call my people. And here who was not beloved I will call beloved. And the very place where it is said to them, you are not my people, they will be called sons of the living God. All of this revelation, this sudden understanding of the birth of Christ has allowed us all to become God's people, joint heirs with Israel. And this is why the visit of the Magi is so important. Why the visit kicks off Epiphany. Of how God's love poured down for us all. So then we must always ask ourselves, if we were to be included from the beginning, why did the Magi have to come in the first place? If John 3:16 and 17 was God so loved us that he gave his one and only Son for the whole world, not to condemn the world, but to save it. Why must the Gentiles still have to come? Well, it's quite simple, really. To make the Jews jealous, of course. Think about it for a moment. The Magi came first and they saw King Herod. Tell them of the star and ask for the king of the Jews. Well, he was the king of the Jews, but he wasn't the one they were looking for. Obviously, as a king or person in power, that would make you kind of jealous, wouldn't it? Want to find out where they are and get rid of them. Try to replace them. This is why King Herod was troubled and everyone was troubled with him. Because he was made pretty jealous. Angry, mad even. You see, they came not offering their gifts to King Herod, but to one who was the true king. You have to understand, jealousy makes people do some really strange things. And in some cases, very evil things. But jealousy is to be more like a child's jealousy. Particularly when they want something that somebody else has. I have to tell you right now, as Olivia is at such a fun age as a parent. It's frustrating, but a fun age. For sometimes she'll be playing with a toy with her nephews or nieces, her cousins, and she's playing with a toy, and then all of a sudden she kind of gets bored of the toy and she sets it down and she goes to another thing. And then she starts playing with it. Well, at that point in time, one of her cousins goes over and starts playing with that toy. Well, guess what? She wants that toy now. And she tries to get the toy back. And so she comes and she tries to get it from them. If she doesn't get it, then she goes to the next person who she thinks can get it for her. Mom and Dad, I was playing with that. I want that back. This is why the Magi appeared. This was to make jealousy fester in the Jews so that more might be saved. As Paul says in Romans 11 through 15. So I ask, did they, meaning the Jews, stumble in order that they might fall? By no means. Rather, through their trespass, salvation has come to the Gentiles, so as to make Israel just. Now, if their trespass means riches for the world, and if their failure means riches for the Gentiles, how much more will their full inclusion mean? Now I am speaking to you, Gentiles, inasmuch then as I am an apostle to the Gentiles. I magnify my ministry in order somehow to make my fellow Jews jealous.